Robert Martinez had been alone for so long that he had forgotten what it felt like to have someone waiting for him at home. 63 years old, with gray hair that he cut himself every month and clothes that he bought from the same store for the past 20 years. His life was simple, quiet, and exactly the way he wanted it. Every morning, Robert woke up at 6:30. He made coffee in the same blue mug his mother had given him decades ago. He ate toast with butter, never jam, and read the newspaper from front to back. By 8, he was downstairs opening his small corner grocery store, the one he had inherited from his father 15 years ago. The store was old, but clean. The wooden floors creaked when customers walked in, and the cash register still made that satisfying ding sound when a sale was made. Robert knew every item on every shelf. He could tell you the price of milk without looking. And he always remembered which customers liked their bread fresh and which ones didn't mind. Old people in the neighborhood respected Robert, but they didn't really know him. He was polite, helpful, and honest. When Mrs. Chun needed help carrying her groceries, he would walk her to her car. When kids came in to buy candy, he would remind them to say please and thank you. But when closing time came at 7, Robert would lock up, count his money, and disappear upstairs to his apartment. His apartment was small but comfortable. 3 rooms that told the story of a man who lived alone and liked it that way. The living room had one chair positioned perfectly by the window where he could watch the street below. The kitchen had 1 plate, 1 cup, 1 fork, 1 knife. The bedroom had a single bed with white sheets that he washed every Sunday. Books were everywhere. Robert loved to read. History books, mystery novels, books about faraway places he would never visit. Reading was like having company without the complications. The characters in books never asked him personal questions or expected him to share his feelings. They just told their stories and let him listen. Robert's mother used to worry about him. "Mio," she would say in her gentle voice, "you need to find someone special. You need a family." But Robert would just smile and change the subject. After she died, there was no one left to worry about his loneliness, and honestly, he preferred it that way. Every evening, Robert took the same walk through his neighborhood. He would lock his apartment door at 8 o'clock sharp and walk the same route for exactly 45 minutes. Left on Maple Street, right on Oak Avenue, around the small park, and back home. Rain or shine, summer or winter, Robert walked. During these walks, he saw everything. He noticed when the Gonzalez family got a new car. He watched the teenage boys who hung out by the bus stop, laughing and showing off for the girls. He observed the old man who sat on his porch every night, smoking a pipe and watching the world go by. Robert saw it all, but he never stopped to talk to anyone. This particular October evening felt different. The air was sharp and cold, the kind of cold that meant winter was coming fast. Most people were inside their warm houses, watching television or having dinner with their families. The streets were quieter than usual, and Robert could hear his own footsteps echoing off the empty sidewalks. As he walked past the old pharmacy that had been closed for 3 years, something caught his eye. At first, he thought it was just a pile of old clothes someone had thrown away. But as he got closer, he realized it was a person. A young woman, curled up in the doorway, trying to stay warm. Robert stopped walking. He stood there for a moment, not sure what to do. In all his years of evening walks, he had never seen anything like this. The girl looked so young, maybe not even 20. Her dark hair was messy, and her clothes looked like she had been wearing them for days. But what made Robert's heart skip a beat was the unmistakable curve of her belly. She was pregnant, very pregnant. She was shivering, even in her sleep. Her thin jacket was pulled tight around her, but it wasn't nearly enough protection against the cold October night. Robert could see her breath forming small clouds in the air. She had one arm wrapped around her belly, as if she was trying to protect her unborn baby even while sleeping. For 30 years, Robert had walked past problems that weren't his to solve. He had seen people in trouble, people who needed help, people who were struggling, but he had always kept walking. That was his rule. Mind your own business. Don't get involved. Keep your life simple and quiet. But something about this girl was different. Maybe it was because she was so young, or maybe it was because she was pregnant. Maybe it was because she looked so alone, so completely abandoned by the world. Or maybe it was because for the first time in his life, Robert looked at another person and saw himself. He stood there in the cold, watching her sleep, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. It was uncomfortable and unfamiliar, like a muscle that hadn't been used in a long time suddenly being stretched. It took him a moment to recognize what it was caring. It was the feeling of wanting to help someone, even if it meant changing his own life. Robert looked around the empty street. No one else was coming to help. No one else had even noticed her. In a few hours, the temperature would drop even more. The girl would wake up freezing if she woke up at all. And what about her baby? What kind of chance did that child have if its mother was sleeping on the street? For the first time in his adult life, Robert Martinez couldn't just walk away. He couldn't go back to his warm apartment, make his evening tea, and read his book while knowing that this girl was out here in the cold. He couldn't pretend he hadn't seen her, couldn't convince himself that it wasn't his problem. He took a deep breath and stepped closer. "Miss?" he said softly, not wanting to frighten her. "Miss, you can't sleep here." The girl's eyes flew open. She sat up quickly, too quickly, and Robert could see the panic in her face. She grabbed a small backpack that had been serving as her pillow and held it tight against her chest. Her eyes darted around, looking for an escape route. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice shaky from cold and fear. "I'm not causing any trouble. I'll leave right now." But as she tried to stand up, Robert could see how difficult it was for her. She was exhausted, hungry, and very pregnant. She swayed a little as she got to her feet, and Robert instinctively reached out to steady her. "Wait," he heard himself saying. "You don't have to go anywhere. I just meant, it's going to be very cold tonight. You could freeze out here." The girl looked at him suspiciously. In her experience, when strange men approached her on the street, it usually meant trouble. But there was something different about this older man. He seemed nervous, like he wasn't used to talking to people. And his eyes were kind, worried, not threatening. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she admitted quietly, and that's when Robert Martinez, the man who had spent his entire life avoiding complications, made a decision that would change everything. "You can stay at my place tonight," he said, "just until you figure out what to do next." The walk back to his apartment was the longest 5 minutes of Robert's life. The girl walked beside him slowly, one hand on her back, the other holding her small backpack like it contained everything precious in the world. Which Robert realized it probably did. She told him her name was Maria, and that was about all she said during the short walk. Robert didn't push for more information. He was too busy wondering what he had gotten himself into. In 63 years, he had never brought anyone to his apartment. Not a friend, not a neighbor, not even a repair person unless it was absolutely necessary. His apartment was his sanctuary, his private space where everything was exactly where he wanted it, and now he was bringing a complete stranger there. A pregnant teenager who looked like she hadn't had a proper meal or a safe place to sleep in weeks. As they climbed the narrow stairs to his apartment, Robert's mind raced with questions. What if she was dangerous? What if she stole from him? What if she had problems he couldn't handle? But then he heard her breathing heavily behind him, struggling with each step, and all his worries seemed selfish and small. "Here we are," Robert sighed, unlocking his door. He stepped inside and turned on the lights, suddenly seeing his home through someone else's eyes. It looked exactly like what it was, the home of a man who lived alone and had lived alone for a very long time. Maria stood in the doorway for a moment, as if she couldn't believe she was actually being invited inside. Then she stepped in carefully, looking around at the neat, quiet space. Her eyes took in the single chair by the window, the books stacked everywhere, the kitchen with dishes for one person. "It's very clean," she said softly, and Robert could hear the surprise in her voice. "I like things organized," Robert replied, suddenly feeling embarrassed about how empty his life must look to her. "Are you hungry? I have some soup." "Canned soup, but it's good." Maria's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment Robert panicked, thinking he had said something wrong. But then she nodded quickly. I haven't eaten since yesterday morning, she whispered. While Robert heated up the soup, Maria sat carefully in his single chair. She kept her backpack on her lap, still not completely trusting that this was real, that this strange man was actually helping her without wanting anything in return. How far along are you? Robert asked, stirring the soup and trying to make conversation. 8 months, Maria replied. Maybe a little more, I'm not exactly sure. Robert felt his heart sink. 8 months meant the baby could come any time. What? Did he know about pregnant women? What did he know about babies? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Do you have a doctor? Someone checking on you and the baby? Maria shrugged. I went to the free clinic a few times, but then I had to leave where I was staying and I haven't been back. Robert served the soup in his best bowl and gave her a clean spoon. He watched as she ate slowly at first, then faster, like she was afraid the food might disappear. It broke his heart to see how hungry she was. Where are your parents? He asked. Gently, Maria's face hardened. Don't have any. Well, I do somewhere, but they gave me up when I was 3. I've been in foster care ever since. And the baby's father? Gone, she said simply, in a way that told Robert not to ask any more questions about that topic. They sat in silence for a while, Maria eating and Robert trying to figure out what to do next. He had offered her a place to stay for one night. But looking at her now, he realized one night wasn't going to solve anything. Where would she go tomorrow? What would happen to her and her baby? You can sleep in my bed, Robert said finally. I'll take the couch. Maria looked up from her soup, shocked. I can't take your bed. The couch is fine for me. No, Robert said firmly. You're pregnant. You need a proper bed. Besides, I fall asleep reading on the couch half the time anyway. That night, Robert lay on his couch staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of someone else in his apartment. He could hear Maria moving around in his bedroom, probably looking at his books, his clothes, trying to figure out what kind of man had offered her shelter. Robert couldn't sleep. His mind was spinning with thoughts and worries. What was he going to do tomorrow? He couldn't just send her back to the streets, especially not when she was so close to having her baby. But what did he know about helping someone like Maria? He had spent his whole life avoiding exactly this kind of situation. The next morning, Robert woke up to the smell of coffee and something else, something he hadn't smelled in his apartment in years. Someone else cooking breakfast. He found Maria in his kitchen, carefully making scrambled eggs with the few ingredients she had found in his refrigerator. She had showered and put on the same clothes, but she looked better, more rested. I hope you don't mind, she said, looking nervous. I wanted to make breakfast to thank you. You didn't have much food, but I found some eggs. Robert realized that, in all his years of living alone, no one had ever cooked for him in his own kitchen. It felt strange and wonderful at the same time. You don't need to thank me, he said, but he was touched by the gesture. They ate breakfast together at his small table, and Robert found himself asking questions about Maria's life. She had been in 12 different foster homes. Some were okay, some were terrible. She had aged out of the system at 18 with nowhere to go and no family to help her. I was staying with some people I met, she explained, but when they found out I was pregnant, they said I had to leave. They didn't want a baby around. What about school? Robert asked. I was supposed to graduate high school, but then all this happened. I want to go back someday, maybe even go to college. I'm smart, I just need a chance. Robert could see the intelligence in her eyes, the determination. This wasn't a girl who had given up on life. She was fighting, trying to survive, and make a better future for herself and her baby. As the morning went on, Robert found himself making small adjustments. He cleared some space in his closet for Maria's few belongings. He went to the store and bought food that she might like. Crackers for her morning sickness, milk for the baby she was carrying. You don't have to do all this, Maria said, watching him unpack groceries. I know, Robert replied, but I want to. And it was true. For the first time in years, Robert wanted to take care of someone else. It scared him, but it also made him feel more alive than he had in decades. That evening they sat together watching television, something Robert almost never did. Maria was reading one of his books, a mystery novel, and occasionally she would laugh at something or make a comment about the story. Robert found that he enjoyed having someone to talk to about the books he loved. "Robert," Maria said during a commercial break, "why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Robert thought about her question for a long time. Why was he helping her? He wasn't entirely sure himself. "I guess," he said finally, "I've been alone for so long that I forgot what it felt like to care about someone else. And maybe I forgot that sometimes people need help, and it's okay to be the person who helps them." Maria smiled at him, the first real smile he had seen from her. "Well, I'm glad you remembered." That night, as Robert lay on his couch again, he realized that his quiet, ordered life had been turned completely upside down in just 24 hours. And surprisingly, he didn't mind at all. 1 week turned into 2, and Robert's carefully organized life became something he barely recognized. His morning coffee ritual, which had been the same for 20 years, now included making tea for Maria because coffee made her feel sick. His quiet breakfast routine was filled with conversations about everything and nothing, the weather, the books she was reading, her dreams for the future. Maria was trying hard not to be a burden. She insisted on cleaning the apartment, even though Robert kept telling her it wasn't necessary. She would carefully dust his books and organize his kitchen cabinets, moving slowly because of her growing belly. Sometimes Robert would catch her resting, one hand on her back, breathing heavily, and he would worry that she was doing too much. "You don't have to clean everything," he told her one morning, finding her scrubbing his already spotless bathroom floor. "I need to do something," Maria replied, not looking up from her work. "I can't just sit here and eat your food and sleep in your bed without giving anything back." Robert understood her need to contribute, but watching her struggle with simple tasks made his chest tight with worry. She was so young, so pregnant, and so determined to prove she wasn't helpless. It reminded him of a wounded bird trying to fly before its wing had healed. The neighbors started to notice changes too. Mrs. Chun from downstairs mentioned that she heard footsteps above Robert's apartment at different times now. The mailman asked if Robert had family visiting because he'd seen a young woman on the stairs. Robert gave simple answers, not lies exactly, but not the whole truth either. He wasn't ready to explain Maria to anyone, partly because he didn't fully understand the situation himself. Shopping became an adventure. Robert had been buying the same groceries for years. Simple meals for one person, nothing fancy, nothing complicated. Now he found himself standing in aisles he'd never explored, looking at things like prenatal vitamins and crackers for morning sickness. Maria would write little lists of things she needed, always apologizing for asking. "I'm sorry, but could you maybe get some of those ginger cookies? They help with the nausea," she would say, looking embarrassed. "Of course," Robert would reply, adding them to his list like it was the most natural thing in the world, but it wasn't natural for him. And some days the changes felt overwhelming. Robert had lived alone for so long that he had forgotten how to share space with another person. The bathroom schedule was different now. His television viewing was interrupted by Maria's need to get up and walk around because sitting too long made her uncomfortable. His quiet evening reading time became conversations about her day, her worries, her excitement about the baby. Some nights, Robert would lie on his couch and wonder what he had gotten himself into. His peaceful, predictable life was gone, replaced by something complicated and uncertain. Maria was grateful and polite, but she was also guarded. She would share little pieces of her story, but never the whole picture. Robert sensed there was more pain in her past than she was ready to talk about. "Tell me about the foster homes," he asked one evening as they ate dinner together. Maria's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "Why do you want to know about that?" I want to understand. What was it like?" Maria put down her fork and was quiet for a long moment. "Some were okay," she said finally. "The Johnsons were nice. They had 3 other foster kids, and Mrs. Johnson made sure we all did our homework and ate vegetables. But then Mr. Johnson lost his job, and they couldn't afford to keep all of us anymore. How old were you then? 12? The next place wasn't. So good, the man there. Maria stopped talking and looked out the window. Let's just say I was glad when they moved me again. Robert felt anger rise in his chest. Anger at people who would hurt a child. Anger at a system that had failed this girl so completely. But he kept his voice gentle. I'm sorry that happened to you. It's not your fault, Maria said with a shrug that tried to hide years of pain. Besides, it made me strong. I know how to take care of myself. But Robert could see that Maria's strength came from necessity, not choice. She had learned to be tough because the world had given her no other option. And now she was about to bring a baby into that same uncertain world during the day. While Robert was downstairs running his store, Maria would read his books or watch television. Sometimes he would check on her during quiet moments, bringing her lunch or just making sure she was okay. He started noticing things about her that touched his heart, the way she would talk to her unborn baby, telling it stories or singing soft songs. The way she would carefully fold and refold the few clothes she owned, trying to make them last. The way she would look out his window with such longing as if she was dreaming of a different life. What do you think about when you look out there? Robert asked her one afternoon. I think about what it would be like to have a normal life, Maria said honestly. You know, a job, a real home, friends who care about you. I think about what kind of mother I want to be. What kind of mother do you want to be? Maria's hand went to her belly automatically. The kind who makes her child feel safe. The kind who's always there, who doesn't leave. I want my baby to never wonder if someone loves them. Robert watched her face as she talked, seeing the fierce love she already had for her unborn child. It made him think about his own mother, how she had worried about him being alone, how she had wanted him to have a family. Maybe this was what she had meant, not just having people in your life, but caring about them so much that their happiness mattered more than your own comfort. The apartment felt different now, too. Maria's presence had softened the edges of Robert's solitary life. There were 2 coffee cups in the sink instead of 1. A sweater draped over the back of his chair. Books open to different pages because someone else was reading them. Small changes that somehow made the space feel more like a home and less like a hiding place, but with the comfort came complications. Robert found himself worrying constantly. Was Maria eating enough? Was the baby healthy? What would happen when the baby came? He had no experience with any of this, and the responsibility felt enormous. One evening, Maria had trouble sleeping. Robert could hear her moving around in the bedroom, getting up and walking, trying to find a comfortable position. Finally, she came out to the living room where Robert was reading. I'm sorry, she said. I can't get comfortable. The baby is kicking and my back hurts. Don't apologize, Robert said, setting down his book. Is there anything I can do? Maria looked embarrassed. My foster mom used to say that walking helped, but I don't want to go outside alone at night. Without thinking, Robert stood up. Come on, we'll walk around the apartment building. Fresh air might help. So they walked slowly around the block, Maria's hand on Robert's arm for support, talking quietly about small things. The night air was cool, and Robert realized this was the first time in months that his evening walk had included another person. It felt strange, but not unwelcome. Robert, Maria said as they walked, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Robert's heart started beating faster. Okay, how long can I really stay? I know you said I could stay until I figured things out, but I'm having a baby in a few weeks. Babies are loud and messy and complicated. This isn't what you signed. Robert stopped walking and turned to look at her. In the streetlight, he could see the worry in her eyes, the fear that she was asking too much, expecting too much. Maria, he said slowly, I've been alone for 63 years. I thought that's what I wanted. But these past few weeks you hear ... not to go back to being alone. So the question isn't how long you can stay. The question is, do you want to stay? Maria stared at him, tears starting to form in her eyes. You really mean that? I really mean that. For the first time since he'd found her sleeping in that doorway, Maria looked like she truly believed she might be safe. 3 weeks later, Robert woke up to a sound he had never heard in his apartment before. It was 2 in the morning, and Maria was calling his name from the bedroom, but her voice sounded different, tight with pain and fear. Robert! Robert, I think ... think it's time. Robert shot up from the couch so fast he nearly fell over. He had been reading about what to expect when a baby comes, but all that knowledge seemed to disappear from his brain the moment he heard the panic in Maria's voice. He rushed to the bedroom and found Maria sitting on the edge of the bed, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the bedsheet. Her face was pale, and she was breathing in short, quick breaths. "Are you sure?" Robert asked, though even as he said it, he could see another wave of pain cross her face. "I've been having pains for an hour," Maria said through gritted teeth. "I thought they would go away, but they're getting stronger and closer together." Robert's hands were shaking as he helped Maria to her feet. In all his years of living alone, he had never had to take care of anyone in an emergency. He had never had to make quick decisions that affected another person's life, let alone 2 lives. Okay, he said, more to calm himself than Maria. "We need to get you to the hospital. Do you have a bag packed?" Maria pointed to a small backpack by the closet. "Just some clothes for me and the baby. Not much, but it's something." The drive to the hospital was the longest 20 minutes of Robert's life. His old car seemed to hit every red light, and with each contraction, Maria would grip the door handle and breathe through the pain. Robert found himself talking to fill the silence, saying things like, "We're almost there," and "Everything's going to be okay," though he wasn't sure who he was trying to convince. "What if something goes wrong?" Maria asked suddenly, her voice small and scared. "Nothing's going to go wrong," Robert said firmly, though his own heart was pounding with the same fear. "You're strong, and the baby is going to be fine." At the hospital, everything happened very fast. Nurses took Maria away in a wheelchair, and suddenly Robert was alone in a waiting room filled with uncomfortable chairs and old magazines. He tried to read, tried to watch the television mounted in the corner, tried to do anything that would make the time pass faster. Hours went by. Robert paced the waiting room, sat down, got up again, bought coffee from a machine that made terrible coffee, and checked the clock on the wall every few minutes. He had never felt so helpless in his life. Other people came and went. Families waiting for news about their loved ones, doctors walking by with serious expressions, visitors coming to see new babies. Robert watched it all and realized he had never been part of this world, the world of people who cared so much about each other that they would sit in uncomfortable chairs all night just to be nearby when they were needed. Around noon, a nurse finally came to find him. "Mr. Martinez, Maria is asking for you." Robert followed the nurse down a long hallway, his heart beating so fast he thought it might jump out of his chest. He had no idea what to expect. Was Maria okay? Was the baby okay? Why had it taken so long? The nurse led him to a room where Maria was lying in bed, looking exhausted but radiant. Her hair was messy and she had dark circles under her eyes, but she was smiling. And in her arms was the tiniest person Robert had ever seen. "Robert," Maria said softly, "meet Elena." Robert approached the bed slowly, as if he was afraid he might break something. The baby was perfect, tiny fingers, a little button nose, dark hair just like her mother's. She was sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that she had just changed everything. "She's beautiful," Robert whispered, and he meant it. He had never really looked at a newborn baby before, never understood what people meant when they talked about the miracle of birth. But looking at Elena, he finally got it. "Do you want to hold her?" Maria asked. Robert's eyes went wide. "I don't know how. What if I drop her?" Maria laughed, the first real laugh Robert had heard from her in weeks. "You won't drop her. Just support her head." Very carefully, Maria placed Elena in Robert's arms. The baby was so light, so fragile, but also so perfectly formed. She opened her eyes for a moment and seemed to look right at Robert, as if she was trying to figure out who this new person was. "Hello, Elena," Robert said quietly. "I'm Robert. Well, I guess I'm going to help take care of you." In that moment, holding this tiny baby who wasn't related to him by blood but felt like family anyway. Robert understood something about love that he had never understood before. Love wasn't just about romance or marriage or the kind of family you were born into. Love was about choosing to care for someone, choosing to make their well-being more important than your own comfort. The next few days were a blur of learning. Maria was tired and sore, but she was determined to figure out how to be a mother. Robert watched her struggle with breastfeeding, saw her worry when Elena cried, observed her gentle patience as she learned to change diapers and give baths. Robert found himself running errands he had never imagined, buying diapers and baby formula, picking up prescriptions, learning the difference between newborn and infant sizes. His quiet grocery store runs became missions to find exactly the right things for a brand new person who had very specific needs. "I don't know what I'm doing," Maria admitted one night as she tried to get Elena to stop crying. She had been walking around the apartment for an hour, bouncing the baby gently, trying everything she could think of. "None of us know what we're doing," Robert replied, "but we'll figure it out together." And they did figure it out, slowly and with lots of mistakes. Robert learned that babies had their own schedules and their own ways of communicating. He discovered that he had an unexpected talent for getting Elena to fall asleep. Something about his deep, calm voice seemed to soothe her. Late at night, when Elena would wake up hungry, Robert would hear Maria getting up to feed her. Sometimes he would get up too, just to make sure everything was okay. He would find Maria in the living room, rocking Elena in the chair by the window, looking out at the street where they had first met. "What are you thinking about?" Robert asked one of those nights. "I'm thinking about how different everything is now," Maria said, looking down at Elena sleeping in her arms. "A few months ago, I was sleeping on the street with no hope for the future. Now I have a daughter, and I have you, and I have a place that feels like home." Robert sat down on the couch and watched Maria with Elena, the sight of them together. This young mother who had been through so much, and this perfect baby who represented hope and possibility, filled him with a kind of joy he had never experienced. "Maria," he said quietly, "I want you to know something. Taking care of you and Elena isn't a favor I'm doing for you. It's not charity, and you don't owe me anything. This is what I want. You two are what I want." Maria looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Really? Really? I've been alone for 63 years, and I never knew what I was missing until I found you sleeping in that doorway. You didn't just need me, I needed you too, both of you." That night, as Robert lay on his couch listening to the soft sounds of Maria and Elena sleeping in the next room, he realized that his life had become something he never could have imagined. He was no longer just Robert Martinez, the man who lived alone above his grocery store. He was Robert who took care of Maria, Robert who helped with night feedings, Robert who worried about doctor appointments and baby milestones. He was part of a family, and for the first time in his life, he truly understood what that meant. 1 year later, Robert's apartment looked like a completely different place. The single chair by the window had been replaced by a comfortable rocking chair where he would sit with Elena every evening, reading her stories from picture books. His neat stacks of serious novels now shared, shelf space with colorful children's books about animals and adventures, the kitchen counter that once held only his coffee mug, and newspaper now displayed Elena's artwork, handprints in finger paint that Maria had helped her make, scribbled drawings that looked like nothing but meant everything. The refrigerator was covered with photos of Elena's first smile, her first time sitting up, her first taste of solid food. Elena was walking now, or trying to. She would pull herself up on the furniture and take a few wobbly steps before falling. Down on her padded bottom, laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. Robert had baby-proofed the entire apartment, putting safety latches on cabinets and corner guards on sharp edges. His once pristine living space was now scattered with toys, blankets, and the beautiful chaos that comes with having a toddler. Maria had changed too. The scared, exhausted girl who had slept in doorways was gone, replaced by a confident young woman with plans and dreams. She had gotten her high school diploma through night classes, studying at the kitchen table after Elena went to bed while Robert helped by watching the baby and making sure the apartment stayed quiet. "I got accepted," Maria announced one evening, waving a letter in the air. "Accepted where?" Robert asked, bouncing Elena on his knee. "Community college, their nursing program. It starts in the fall." Robert felt a surge of pride that surprised him with its intensity. "Maria, that's wonderful. I knew you could do it." "I can't believe it's really happening," Maria said, sitting down next to them. "I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to have a real career, a way to take care of Elena properly." "You're already taking care of her properly," Robert said gently. "But I'm proud of you for following your dreams." The neighborhood had accepted their unusual family gradually. Mrs. Chun now stopped by regularly with homemade cookies for Elena and would babysit when Maria had classes. The mailman always asked about the baby. Even the teenagers who hung out by the bus stop would wave when they saw Robert pushing Elena in her stroller during their evening walks. Robert's evening walks had become family adventures. Instead of walking alone in silence, he now pushed a stroller while Maria walked beside him, pointing out dogs and birds to Elena, who would clap her hands and babble excitedly at everything she saw. The same route that had once been Robert's. Solitary meditation time was now filled with laughter and conversation. "She's getting so big," Maria said one evening as they watched Elena chase a butterfly in the small park. "Too big," Robert replied, feeling a strange sadness at how quickly time was passing. "Pretty soon she'll be running faster than we can keep up with." "Are you sorry?" Maria asked suddenly. "About how your life changed? About us?" Robert looked at her in surprise. "Sorry?" "Maria, this past year has been the best year of my life." And it was true. Robert had discovered things about himself he never knew existed. He had patience he didn't know he possessed, especially at 3 in the morning when Elena was teething, and nothing would make her stop crying. He had developed an ability to function on very little sleep. Living on coffee and the pure joy of watching Elena discover the world, he had learned to sing lullabies, something he never imagined himself doing. His deep, gentle voice could calm Elena when she was fussy, and he found himself looking forward to their quiet moments together in the rocking chair. Her tiny hand wrapped around his finger as she drifted off to sleep. The grocery store had become more family-friendly, too. Robert had installed a small play area in one corner where Elena could sit safely while Maria helped with inventory or when they needed to bring her to work. Customers loved seeing the baby, and business had actually improved because people enjoyed the warmth and life that Elena brought to the place. "She's going to be walking soon," Dr. Peterson had said at Elena's last checkup, "and talking more. Are you ready for that?" Robert and Maria had looked at each other and laughed. Were they ready? They had been learning as they went for a whole year, figuring out parenthood together, making mistakes and celebrating victories. Elena's first word had been "Mama," which made Maria cry happy tears. Her second word had been "Bobo," which was as close as she could get to Robert, and that had made Robert cry too, though he pretended he had something in his eye. Now Elena was starting to put together simple sentences. "Bobo book," she would say, toddling over to Robert with a picture book in her hands. "Mama milk," when she was hungry. "No sleep," when it was bedtime and she wanted to keep playing. The apartment had developed rhythms and routines that felt natural and right. Morning coffee for Robert, tea for Maria, and mashed bananas for Elena. Afternoon naps when Elena would fall asleep in Robert's arms while he read to her. Evening baths that involved more water on the floor than in the tub, followed by story time and lullabies. "Robert," Maria said one evening as they cleaned up after dinner, "I need to tell you something." Robert felt his heart skip a beat. After a year of happiness, he still sometimes worried that it was all temporary, that Maria would decide she wanted a different life. "I've been saving money," Maria continued, "from my part-time job at the store, from the tips when I help Mrs. Chun with her English lessons. I have enough now to get my own place, a small apartment for Elena and me." Robert's heart sank, but he tried to keep his expression neutral. Of course Maria wanted her independence. She was young, smart, and capable. She didn't need to live with an old man forever. "That's great," he said, hoping his voice sounded normal. "You should have your own space." Maria looked at him carefully. "But I don't want my own space," she said quietly. "I want to stay here with you. This feels like home. You feel like family. The only family Elena has ever known." Robert felt relief wash over him like a warm wave. "Are you sure? You're young, Maria. You might want to date someday, get married, have the kind of life that people your age usually have." "Maybe someday," Maria said with a shrug. "But right now, this is the life I want. Elena loves you like a grandfather. I love you like the father I never had. Why would I want to break up our family?" That night, as Robert sat in his rocking chair with Elena sleeping peacefully in his arms, he thought about the word Maria had used. Grandfather, at 64 years old, he had become a grandfather to a beautiful little girl who wasn't related to him by blood but was completely his own. He looked around at their home, because that's what it was now. A home, not just an apartment? Elena's toys were scattered on the floor. Maria's nursing textbooks were stacked on the table. Photos of their family covered the walls, pictures of Elena's first steps, her first birthday party, family moments that captured a love that had grown from the most unlikely circumstances. Outside the window, the street looked the same as it had a year ago, but everything else had changed. Robert was no longer the man who lived alone above his grocery store, the man who walked the same route every evening in solitude, the man who had convinced himself that isolation was enough. He was Robert who made silly faces to make Elena laugh. Robert who helped Maria study for her nursing exams. Robert who had learned that family wasn't just something you were born into, but something you chose to create and nurture every single day. Maria appeared in the doorway, ready to take Elena to bed. "Come on, sleepyhead," she whispered gently, lifting her daughter from Robert's arms. "Sweet dreams," Robert said softly, kissing Elena's forehead. As Maria carried Elena to the bedroom, Robert stayed in his chair for a moment, looking out at the street where this all began. A year ago, he had been walking alone, lost in his own quiet world. Tonight, his apartment was full of the sounds of family, Maria humming a lullaby, Elena's peaceful breathing, the comfortable noise of people who belonged together. Robert Martinez had lived alone for 63 years, but he would never be alone again. And as he finally got up to turn off the lights and go to sleep on his couch, he couldn't imagine wanting it any other way.